Hey guys, this week I wanted to circle back to social studies like I promised. We've been doing a lot of science. And what I want to do was, if we can remember, that we actually were starting to talk about early English colonies before we left on this forced quarantine. And if you remember back that we finished up New Spain, New France, New Netherlands, I actually added back the video that I had from when we did this before. So if you want to like do another recap earlier than this recap video, like what the heck were we talking about? Watch that video first, okay? And then let's try this one. So this one is going to be, remember we had just started talking about a little bit about Roanoke. So I just thought I'd show you a quick map to remind you, we know that English settlers crossed the Atlantic Ocean for a lot of different reasons, different than the Spanish, the French, and the Dutch, and that even different within themselves. So let's just a reminder, can you see this line here? It says 1 with a little ship. So this is pointing to Roanoke Island off the coast of what is today North Carolina. What I like about this map too is it shows you the native groups who are already living there, because of course we know these people did not, the Europeans did not discover this land since there were already natives living there. So anyway, I'm just going to label this line as being that the Roanoke colonists came in 1587. So one of the things too that I'm adding in for you guys, or as a reminder, is you can go back and read that article if you want that we read before we left with some background information. I'm just going to do a little bit of a recap. And this is actually, guys, working up to us doing another project. So this is the reason why I'm giving you all this information this week and resources that will help us. At the end of the week, I'm going to talk to you about a project that we're going to do that will be due next week. Okay, so Roanoke settlers came in 1587. Let me switch screens for 1 second, actually. Maybe this does make sense to do this first. And we'll remember we talked about this guy, right, who said, let's see if the magic pen works. You know, magic pen always gives me trouble at school. Let's see if it wants to work here. I went to Roanoke because I thought I would have a better life there. So there was this push to leave England. And you remember in that article we read all about how life in England, or life especially in a city in England, like London, was hard and crowded and, contamination. And so that life in the New World was going to be amazing for a lot of people. So a lot of colonists made that trek in 1587, but we know it did not end well since they are called the Lost Colony. So then we have, about 20 years later, a different settlement, a different group coming from England, Jamestown, the Virginia Company, and they're going to sail further north and land here in the Chesapeake Bay, which is originally actually where these colonists wanted to be. Unfortunately, they do land themselves and make their colony up on the James River, which turns out to be not a great spot. We just started to read about this before we left, a month and a half ago. So I'm going to do some more recap about that, I think, on Tuesday or Wednesday. I'll have to check the schedule. And then, of course, even 13 years later from that, we have the arrival of the Pilgrims, which I think you know the most about, in Massachusetts in 1620, which is kind of cool. That'll be the 400th anniversary of that in the fall. So this is showing us these major early English settlements. Let's come back over here for a minute. The Jamestown guy is telling us that, oops, I cut it off a little bit. I went to Jamestown in search of gold and other riches. So that should tell us a little bit about their, what they were here for. And then the Pilgrim lady here, right? I went to Plymouth to find religious freedom. The Pilgrims, you might remember I told you guys, did not call themselves Pilgrims. That's one of the vocab words we're going to go over in a minute. They refer to themselves as separatists. So we'll talk more about that at some point in the week. Okay, so let's first talk about vocab. Now, I wonder how many of you brought home with you your folders from your desk before you left. You know that I almost even couldn't remember what color a folder was. I think it's red, right? Isn't red social studies? So blue is science, I hope. So I want you to think that we did do this TMV. If you were there the week before we left vacation, we did do this whole TMV. I confirmed it with somebody else in another class. Remember, we filled in all these words and we drew all like these funny pictures. So you might have this. You might not. If you don't have this, I do want you to make your own vocab. Now you can do a TMV like this. I'll even attach a thing so you could print out a TMV thing if you want. You could make it on scrap paper. You could use index cards. I also found a couple cool other ideas that I'm going to show you in a few minutes of how you could just make a little way to practice this vocab, because I do think it's good, important vocab that will help us with our knowledge kind of for this whole little mini unit. So let me go over the words quickly individually, and I'll zoom back in if I can. Okay, so raw material. Raw material is a resource that can be used to make a product. Um, in this case, talk about the connection to Roanoke. And one of the things that England loves, especially about the colonies, is the amount of raw materials that the colonies can provide for England. So there's many, many, many giant trees that can be chopped into wood that can be sent back to England to made into furniture. So there's a big connection between the need and the interest in raw material. So maybe they don't find gold, right? Maybe they don't find diamonds and other things, but they do find that these kinds of resources like this, or hey, I think our next word is cash crop, other things can help them make money and be a valuable new settlement. So a cash crop is a crop that is grown to be sold. Like in this case, these are my funny pictures that I had from those cards. I wish I had my full cards at home with me, but I don't. So this was meant to be tobacco, which we know was the gold really of Jamestown, that they did not find gold, but they found that tobacco grew really well there, and that could be sent back to Europe and make lots of money for them that way. Legislature. A legislature is a branch of government that makes the laws. So my picture that I had on the card, right, had like a building, like a legislature, and then a little thing, a scrolly thing that says, "We make the laws." So one of the things that was unique and special about Jamestown was that it's going to be the first legislature in the colonies. They created a thing called the House of Burgesses. They're 3,000 miles away from England, and there are times when they need to make laws and decisions quickly, and they may think it's important to allow the colonists um, to really have a say in that. That's huge. That really falls into this piece that we start to talk about democracy, and the fact that the colonists lived this way for so long before the revolution is a key reason why they have so many issues with England right leading up to the revolution. So then I think, yep, we had the word Burgess, which is a representative. So in this case, um, it would be like, say, think of it like our classroom. So maybe for room 7 or room 6 or room 9, one person or two people might be the representatives, and they might go to a group like a legislature within the school, and they would help make decisions or get things done to help fifth grade. So it's not that everybody gets to have a vote in this way, but it's that a one person represents the needs of other people. So now we moved into the words we didn't get to spend as much time with. The word pilgrim, lowercase p. Mrs. Palmieri's I'm a little bit picky about that. In fact, I'm going to underline it if it lets me. Here we go. Lowercase. Okay. Uppercase p would be like the pilgrims, the people who came from England to Massachusetts. But lowercase p is a person who goes on a journey for religious reasons. And there are still pilgrims in our world today. We say that people go on a pilgrimage when they go on a religious journey. Um, so in the case of the people who call themselves separatists, who came from England in order to practice their religion freely after what they had suffered or they felt they suffered in England. The picture I drew, though, was a ship, and I put several religious symbols just to get us thinking about what the word really means, right? A person who goes on a journey for religious reasons. So you can pick a symbol if any of those symbols have special meaning to you, or you can do anything you like. Compact. Don't we love these social studies definitions so much shorter than those science ones? An agreement. So here are my two shaking hands. This is a big piece of what happens for the Pilgrims before they get off the Mayflower in Massachusetts. They have to form this thing called the Mayflower Compact, and they need to try to agree to live together and stick together and make decisions and rules together peacefully. Otherwise, they're not going to survive. That was a key thing. I think the last word is self-rule, governing oneself. So as you can see, compact, self-rule, Burgess, legislature, we're building into these things about government and how these colonies were able to maybe be successful or not in terms of how they made rules and decisions to protect themselves and each other. So when you have self-rule, you are governing yourself. So my little picture, the picture I showed you guys at school that day was a yes and no chart. And sorry, these is some pretty sad looking stick people. But I had stick people, right, who say, yes, we make the rules. So they together are making the rules, right? Or yes, self-rule. But this is my stick king over here, right, with his stick crown. Aha, he says, I make the rules. So no, it's self-rule is not one person making decisions for everybody. Self-rule is people having a way to have some kind of rule for themselves. Okay, so that was a review of vocab. So if you do not have your folder, do not have these words, I would like you to produce these words in some way and study them this week. This was something else I found that I'm going to attach. It's a vocabulary wheel. I thought this was kind of cool. It's meant that I've attached this so you can print it. You can even make your own. You would print out two wheels and you would have one underneath that would have the definitions written here, and the one on top would have the words written, and then you'd attach them in the center, and you can like lift these little parts up as like it's petals, and then you could like reveal the word underneath. Let me see if I can find a fill-in picture for you. Okay, I found a filled-in one. So this was kind of cool. So you could write the words on the top. You would kind of cut them just to the center, and then underneath you could write the definition, and then color everything and kind of use it as a way to review. So that's one suggestion. I think, yeah, that one's good. The TMB, I'll put it as blank is good. Make your own chart, do anything you like, and you kind of like a little fun, do something a little creative for yourself. There's also a game I'd like to show you. This is similar to a game that it's funny, we didn't play this year at all, but this is a game I usually play. Maybe you've played in other teach classrooms too. So I want you could play this. You could even play with a friend on FaceTime maybe or something, or if you're allowed to do any kind of other video conferencing, just thinking, you could totally do. So you could have your words out and you could roll a dice and define the word. If you roll a one, draw it and then have the person guess it. Say something that means the same, act it out. What does it remind you of? Something that it means the opposite, so synonyms and antonyms. So I just thought that was kind of cool. I'll post this separately too if you want to use that. So that would be a way to be able to interact with somebody else if you want outside your house, if that would be okay with your parents, like on, FaceTime or whatever else you're allowed to use. So peeps, we're building up for this project I told you about the other week, and maybe even some Kahoot. I'm working on it. So keep that in mind, okay? So that you maybe aren't turning in as much this week, but I'm still asking and hoping that you'll spend a little bit of time each day practicing and working on these things. So this was the vocab part. I am going to post a separate short video review about Roanoke. So think about doing that article too, and that will help you get ready for our project at the end of the week. Okay? I miss you guys, and I hope that you're doing well.